Although I was trained as an art historian and museum curator, I've been long interested in many different subjects, including especially how the visionary experience was and is central to shamanism, which is the type of spirituality that has existed throughout the world for 30,000 years and is ubiquitous in the Americas. Shamans are the religious leaders. We use that term, although each culture has its own term for them. Shamans go into trance because they're trying to solve problems such as human illness and imbalances in nature, what's happening with the deer or the plants, or all the different things that need to stay in balance. And through trance, they seek healing and insight and truth. This female Shaman Effigy from ancient Costa Rica is in the meditation pose, and her large eyes underscore her trance state. Visions can be achieved in many ways, from sensory deprivation to fasting, repetitive drumming and dancing, to the ingestion of certain special plants that alter human consciousness. Shamans call them plant teachers. These sacred plants have become front and center in a long-term collaborative research process, seeking to uncover which special plants may be verified as the original contents of the vessels made all through the Americas. The rich art collection of Emory's Michael C. Carlos has provided many avenues for us, uniting curators, conservators, and chemists from Emory University and Eastern Michigan University. We're dedicated to the quest for new knowledge, gained from the intersection of art, cultural studies, and science. There are many possible plants to consider. Several of the most interesting leads from the ancient vessels may be singled out. Psilocyber mushrooms are ubiquitous in the Americas. This ancient Costa Rican meditating shaman effigy happens to be intersexed and has united their body with that of the mushroom. Their hat is the mushroom cap, and their arms and legs are long and thin, like the fungus stem. Their shamanic powers were likely considered to be amplified by the presence of both male and female physical characteristics, and by being both human and sacred plant when in trance. Peyote is a cactus that grows abundantly in Mexico and the United States. It has fluted bulbs that flower from the center, as captured in this 2 millennia old pot. The vessel was made in the blackware technique, not because the cactus itself is dark, but to mirror its special nature. Blackware is difficult to achieve. It entails snuffing out the flames during firing, and only if done correctly and withdrawing all the oxygen does the naturally reddish ceramic turn black. This process is done blind. You can't see what you're doing while you're firing. And the transformation only becomes apparent when you take the pot out of the fire. Similarly, peyote is ingested at night, and it transforms the person. Twisted Banisteriopsis vines grow in the rainforests from Costa Rica through Amazonia. I've recently pinpointed a motif of 2 lines that twist, much like the vine. And this vine pattern occurs usually with jaguar imagery. In this example, 2 jaguars are united by an incised band of the twisted vines. I think we can infer the same prestige and meaning in the choice of blackware here. And jaguars do come in black in nature. Shamanic trances often include transformation into the apex predator of the jungle, which is the jaguar. In fact, I think black jaguars have greater prestige, since their inky coloration hides them completely in the night. And ceremonies using the vine occur in the dark as well. In this example, the Anadenanthera colubrina tree is featured. It grows on the coast of what is now Peru, and this vessel was made by the Moche in the early AD. You can see the tree's characteristic long seed pods. The seeds inside are highly psychotropic. But the artist has clearly also put emphasis on 4 large three-dimensional lizards, as if they are in its branches. And in reality, lizards, what we call Dicadron holmbergi, do consume Anadenanthera seeds. And then humans who eat the lizards get the same effects. The lizards act as biomediators. Anadenanthera tends to make animals excited and even violent. And interestingly, the moche artist has painted on the backs of the lizards a swirling pattern that is seen in other moche pieces that denote human warriors. This suggests to me that moche warriors may have consumed the seeds or the lizards before going into battle. In a final example, another animal is a source of psychotropic substances. The Bufo alvarius toad, which lives in the Sonoran Desert of northern Mexico and the Southwest. It has prominent kidney-shaped parotid glands behind its eyes, which you can see clearly on this toad effigy from Costa Rica. The pitted glands can be milked to extrude the liquid. It engenders a short but intense visionary experience. Another key element on this rendition of the Bufo alvarius toad is an incised snake that seems to be slithering out of the inside of the container and winds its way around the pot. At the back of the animal, the snake culminates in 2 applique heads. This double-headed vision serpent motif is found in Maya art to the north of where this pot was made. The toad comes from even farther north. We have preliminary residue results tying it to Bufo alvarius, but in science, replication of results is necessary. If we can verify our findings, this pot will have shown long distance trade and influence from Costa Rica through the Maya to the Southwest. Not only drawing attention to ancient containers, I'd like to address the very different cultural points of view regarding plant teachers. Plants that are considered sacred by shamans have had an extremely different interpretation by outsiders, especially modern Westerners of Euro-American extraction. Beginning in the 60s, plant teachers were broadly labeled as hallucinogens, substances that create experiences featuring, quote, a seemingly real perception of something not actually present, typically as a result of a mental disorder or of taking drugs, unquote. In other words, they were considered to constitute all that is not real. By contrast, shamanistic cultures see them as exactly the opposite. Soon they became illegal, known as Schedule I drugs, which have, quote, no currently accepted medical use and high potential for abuse, unquote. Over the last few decades, Indigenous knowledge has become more valued and respected, and this categorization of Schedule I drugs has come under scrutiny. First, there are medical applications for various of these substances. Under certain circumstances, such as terminal illness and seemingly incurable depression, psilocybin has been administered with great success in medical settings. I think this is because an important characteristic of visions is you see the whole picture, you gain a perspective. You see that death is part of life and your human body is not as important as your ongoing soul. So this can be very comforting for people who are facing death and terrible feelings. They gain this different perspective. Johns Hopkins has been pioneering psilocybin mushroom therapy. Emory has as well. Many different reputable institutions are exploring this avenue for unlocking the potential of plant teachers that shamans have employed for centuries. As for the, quote, high potential for abuse in Schedule I drug designation, it's extremely important to acknowledge the plants utilized in shamanic trances are non-addictive. What we have termed hallucinogens simply do not cause physical addiction. Indeed, a respected Shipibo Conibo shaman, Guillermo Arevalo, he says that if you are taking drugs and are addicted, you should come down and take ayahuasca and it will help you. So he makes a complete distinction between his medicines and our drugs. Also, the Native American Church administers peyote as its sacrament. It claims great success in treating alcoholism and drug addiction. And in Brazil, there are 2 churches that dispense ayahuasca with the same beneficial results. One is called Santo Daime, and the other, the União do Vegetal, the United Vegetalists. It's important to note that natural plants can be converted into drugs. Cocaine begins with the benign leaves of the coca plant. They settle your stomach. They give you a little extra energy boost when you are adapting to the high altitude of the Andes Mountains. But a long process uses poisons such as gasoline and ether to convert coca leaves into cocaine powder. And then it becomes highly, tragically, and dangerously addictive. Obviously, the indigenous interaction with plants and the Western distortion of them are at odds with one another. This Western point of view began long ago. The Spanish, who invaded the Americas 500 years ago, considered the plants evil, and they called shamans witches. And we know what they did to witches. They vilified all of the sacred plants. Personally, I don't want us to inherit that prejudice all these many years later. We don't really believe many things that were said in the 1500s, especially about people who were different from white Europeans. So in my opinion, why should we continue to have those prejudices circulating in our culture? It's time to value the shamanic knowledge.